What are the top 10 richest countries in Asia in 2024? Before the video starts, drop a comment sharing your guess about which country you believe is the richest in Asia. No cheating allowed. At the end of the video, we will present a nice chart that shows an overview of all 10 countries. Make sure to keep watching until then. Good day, kings! Before we start the video, it is necessary to explain the parameters used in this video. First, what is Asia? This might sound like a silly question, but depending on the used definition, the answer could actually be different. For this video, we take the definition from the United Nations, from the International Monetary Fund, and from worldpopulationreview.com, excluding countries where no financial data was available. As the largest continent on Earth, with 30% of the Earth's landmass and 60% of its population, Asia has many distinct regions such as the Middle East, Central Asia, East Asia, and Southeast Asia. A tricky example: Russia spans from Europe to Asia, but it is a European country as per the UN's definition. While most of its territory lies in Asia, most of its people live in Europe. Therefore, the sources do not define Russia as an Asian country. Second, what does it mean for a country to be rich? Even though there are many factors that can help classifying a country as either rich or poor, we chose the gross domestic product, or in short GDP. The GDP measures the total value of all the goods and services produced by a country in a year. The data is taken from the International Monetary Fund. If you enjoy the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to become an actual king. Trust me, it works. So with that out of the way, let's start. Number 10. Thailand with a GDP of 512 billion US dollars. Thailand isn't just about its picturesque beaches. In fact, Thailand's economy is mostly dependent on exports, which include machinery, electronics, food, wood, and more. The main export partners are the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, the United States, and China. Defined as a newly industrialized country, Thailand also has one of the lowest unemployment rates in the world. Due to its rapidly growing economy, the number of Thailand's poor people declined massively in the last decades. Number 9. Israel with a GDP of 521 billion US dollars. Israel is regarded as a highly free market economy with a sophisticated welfare state, a powerful modern military, and modern infrastructure, rivaling many Western countries. Also, the high-tech sector is on par with Silicon Valley, while Israel is having the second largest number of startup companies in the world, just behind the United States. Israel also has the third largest number of Nasdaq-listed companies, right behind the US and China. Israel's main economic sectors are high-tech and industrial manufacturing. Also, the diamond industry is a major player in the country. Regarding the current situation, Israel's economy is taking a significant blow. The economic toll may cost Israel an estimated 400 billion US dollars in lost economic activity over the next decade, mostly through indirect effects such as reduced investment, slowing productivity growth, and labor market disruption. Due to this, Israel might drop out of the list next year. Number 8. Taiwan with a GDP of 751 billion US dollars. Taiwan, a highly developed free market economy, is notable for its rapid economic development from an agriculture-based society to an industrialized high-income country, which is also described as the Taiwan miracle. Taiwan has one of the most technologically advanced microchip and high-tech electronics industries in the world. Foreign trade has been the engine of Taiwan's rapid growth during the past 40 years, and it still remains export-oriented. Currently, Taiwan faces many of the same economic challenges as other developed countries. These include a relocation of labor-intensive industries to countries with cheaper workforces, such as China, the Philippines, or Vietnam. Also, Taiwan faces one of the world's lowest fertility rates and high housing prices. And if that wasn't enough, Taiwan also faces labor shortages, falling domestic demand, and declining tax revenues. Number 7. Saudi Arabia with a GDP of 1.1 trillion US dollars. As is quite known, the Saudi economy is highly reliant on its petroleum sector. The kingdom is the largest exporter of petroleum in the world. In recent years, oil has accounted for approximately 40% of Saudi GDP. The kingdom has the second largest petroleum reserves in the world, just behind the Brazilian Venezuelan oil reserves, and the fourth largest natural gas reserves in the world. Saudi Arabia is also a permanent and founding member of OPEC, the organization of the petroleum exporting countries. Its oil reserves and production are mainly managed by the state-owned corporation Saudi Saudi Aramco, which is also one of the largest companies in the world by revenue as well as market capitalization. In 2016, the Saudi government launched its Saudi Vision 2030 program to reduce its dependency on oil and to diversify its economic resources. Maybe you have already heard of one of its projects, NEOM. The futuristic region is supposed to be powered by 100% renewable energy and is the home to The Line, Oxagon, Trojena and Sindalah. Seriously, Google these projects. They look right out of some science fiction movie. Number 6. Turkey with a GDP of 1.2 trillion US dollars. The newly industrialized country has an upper middle income and is defined as a mixed market emerging economy. It is one of the leading producers of agricultural products, textiles and motor vehicles. Over the past 20 years, there have also been major developments in the financial and social aspects of Turkey's economy. Despite the declining value of the Turkish lira, there has been a sharp increase in the country's GDP figures in the recent years. Half of Turkey's land is agricultural and farming employs about 15% of the workforce, quite a lot compared to Western countries, but for a reason. Turkey is the European Union's 4th largest supplier of vegetables and the 7th largest supplier of fruits. Furthermore, Istanbul is the most populated city in both Turkey and Europe. Quite interestingly, medical tourism to Turkey has exploded in recent years, 60% of that coming from plastic surgeries. If your hairline is receding or if you just cannot get rid of your double chin, Turkey might be worth a visit. Number 5. Indonesia with a GDP of 1.4 trillion US dollars. Being one of the emerging market economies, Indonesia is an upper middle income country and defined as a newly industrialized country. Indonesia depends on the domestic market and government budget spending and its ownership of state-owned enterprises such as oil and natural gas corporation Pertamina. Regarding the sectors, industrial and services each represent around 40% of the country's GDP. Currently, around 30% of Indonesian land is used for agriculture. Primary commodities include rice, peanuts, natural rubber, cocoa and coffee, as well as palm oil. Regarding oil, Indonesia was the only Southeast Asian member of OPEC until its suspension in 2009. Even though the country has some natural oil reserves, it remains a net oil importer. Indonesia also has a stake in some highly modern industries. It is the world's largest producer of tin and nickel, as well as the second largest producer of cobalt. Number 4. The Republic of Korea, which is South Korea, not North Korea, with a GDP of 1.7 trillion US dollars. The highly developed mixed economy is notable for its rapid economic development from an underdeveloped, starving nation to a developed high-income country in only a few generations. Major carrier of this development being BTS. Just kidding. The country's growth has also been described as the miracle on the Han River. The country's education system and the establishment of a hardworking and educated population were largely responsible for the country's high-tech boom, even though the high-pressure environment also led to several issues. The country also showed a high resilience against various economic crises due to low state debt and a high fiscal reserve. With around 60%, services play the most important role in the country's GDP, followed by industrials with around 32%. Top South Korean exports include integrated circuits, cars, refined petroleum and motor vehicle parts, and its major export partners are China, the United States and Vietnam. Electronics is one of its main industries with companies such as Samsung, LG or SK Hynix. Regarding automobiles, almost everyone knows Hyundai, Kia or Daewoo. Most of the Korean Peninsula's mineral deposits lie in North Korea, but South Korea is still one of the major exporters for bismuth, rhenium and sulfur. Number 3. India with a GDP of 3.7 trillion US dollars. The country's economy has transitioned from a mixed planned economy to a mixed middle-income developing social market economy with a notable public sector and strategic sectors. The country gained its independence rather late, in 1947, when the British rule in India ended and the colony of India was split into Hindu India and Muslim Pakistan. From this time until around 1991, the country followed a Soviet model and promoted protectionism and state intervention. The end of the Cold War led to the adoption of a broad economic liberalization and indicative planning. Nearly 70% of India's GDP is driven by domestic consumption, and the country has the second largest labor force in the world, just behind China. Did you know that India has the world's third highest number of billionaires? One of them actually built a 173 meters or 570 feet tall luxury house in Mumbai for over 2 billion US dollars. Seriously, check it out. The house is is called Antillia. Unfortunately, the country also has an extreme income inequality and a high unemployment rate. The service sector makes up more than 50% of the country's GDP and remains the fastest growing sector, while the industrial and agricultural sector employ the majority of the labor force. Its major export goods are petroleum oils, diamonds and pharmaceuticals, followed by jewelry. The Bombay Stock Exchange and the National Stock Exchange are some of the world's largest stock exchanges by market capitalization. Number 2. Japan with a GDP of 4.2 trillion US dollars. Due to a volatile currency exchange rate, Japan's GDP as measured in dollars fluctuates sharply. But still, the Japan Exchange Group, which is the Japanese stock exchange, is the 5th largest stock exchange in the world by market capitalization. Japan also has the 2nd largest foreign exchange reserves worth 1.4 trillion US dollars. With almost 70%, the main sector in Japan is services, followed by industrials with around 30%. Japan is the world's 2nd largest automobile manufacturing country and mainly focuses on high-tech and precision goods, such as cars, integrated circuits and robotics. Major export countries are China, the United States and South Korea. Generally, as an exporting nation, Japan runs an annual trade surplus. As of 2024, Japan has significantly higher levels of public debt than any other developed nation at approximately 263% of GDP. Just as a comparison, the United States are at 123% and Germany is at 60%. As Japan does not have many resources, about 84% of its energy is imported from other countries, mainly as liquefied gas, coal and oil, which makes the country vulnerable to energy shocks. Because of this, Japan has aimed to diversify its energy sources and made some progress in the solar and hydroelectricity market. Japan, like many other industrialized countries, faces considerable challenges posed by an aging and declining population. And finally, number 1. The People's Republic of China with a GDP of 17.7 trillion US dollars, more than all other countries on this list combined. The upper middle income, developing mixed socialist market economy incorporates industrial policies and strategic 5-year plans. Just like the Japanese yen, China's currency renminbi also suffers a volatile exchange rate. Private investment and exports are the main drivers of economic growth in China, sometimes referred to as the factory of the world. Being the world's largest manufacturing economy and exporter of goods, China also has the world's fastest growing consumer market. The country accounts for about half of global consumption of metals. Unfortunately, the country has significant income and wealth inequality. Outpacing India, China has the 2nd most billionaires in the world, just behind the United States. In foreign exchange reserves, China even surpasses Japan, having the world's largest foreign exchange reserves worth 3.1 trillion US dollars. As a reminder, Japan has 1.4 trillion. The Middle Kingdom also holds 3 of the world's 10 largest stock exchanges, both by market capitalization and trade volume. With roughly 800 million workers, China has the largest labor force in the world, more than double that of India. The country also has 2 of the global top 5 science and technology clusters: Shenzhen, Hong Kong, Guangzhou and Beijing. Its main trading partners are the European Union, the United States and South Korea. As promised at the beginning of the video, here you can see the chart that shows an overview of all the top 10 countries. It's crazy just how much bigger China is than all the other Asian countries, right? China truly is the factory of the world. However, China wants to get away from that image. Instead of producing mostly cheap goods, China now wants to venture into high-tech industries such as automotive, robotics, AI and tech. And it seems to be working. TikTok is highly famous. Chinese smartphones offer great performance for a small price, and Chinese electrical vehicles are starting to enter Western markets. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to become an actual king. Trust me, it works.